Evening, everybody. Evening, Chris.
Hurry, hurry,
Oh yes,
hurry,
let's crawl.
take the train to find the quickest way to get to Harlem.
Hey, Mud. Do you want to
If
dance or what?
you should take the A train, you'll find
Sweet.
you'll get to Sugar
Look at
Hill
the
if you
tea.
hurry.
Hey, Timothy.
Hurry, hurry. Now it's coming. Oh, oh.
Hey, Karen and Heather. Hey, Mom.
Can't you hear the rails are humming?
We are partying tonight. Hey, Don.
If you should take the A train, you'll find the quickest way to get to Harlem.
Yeah, Sarah. Hey, Rose and Heather. Hey, Jerry. Hey, Bridget and Bridget's mom. Hey, Eva. Do-do-ah.
I ain't mad at you, pretty baby. Don't be
Duke
mad.
Ellington live at the Blue Note here in Chicago.
Oh, Pop Sugar
This particular
Bam.
tune, his signature, written by his collaborator Billy Strayhorn. Duke would absolutely hear no criticism of the fact that Strayhorn was gay.
Me and you, I covered the
Hey, Sue.
waterfront.
Hey, Natalie. Hey, Melissa. Hey, Viewing Wiz over on YouTube.
There's no
Hey,
sun,
Laura and Sandy and Larry.
no money.
Hey, John. Hey, Sue. Hey, Natalie. Luann. Anybody I might have missed back there? Hey, Georgia and Jordana. Congrats to your son, Timberly. The visual drink tonight is like kind of whatever you feel like. There are a couple of drinks mixed in here, but they're both just reruns. Hey, Trey on YouTube. That is Bet. Bet at the Continental Baths. You can see the crowd coming to see the music on one side and the crowd there for the bath part on the other. Hey, Trey over on YouTube. Yeah, this is Miles. Miles must appear on every one of our virtual tours. It's a rule. It's in his contract. He's being especially clingy tonight, so... Hey, Heather. Ah, Jerry, that's harsh. At least you're here. Hey, Dina. There he is. And this is Miles. You can see him down on our logo, too. Down there in the corner. Hey, Julie. Hey, Eric and Emily. Hey, Jean. And everybody at Montessori training. All right. I probably would have liked Montessori schools. Hey, Robin in Tusker House. Hey, Teresa. Adam, he's tried to get out of screen time a couple of times, hiding over in the closet. But you can't be in the closet tonight now, can you, Miles? It's a Pride Month pub call. All right. Hey, Susan. Timberly and Casey and Eileen. Hey, Liz. Hey, everybody. Welcome along to another virtual time travel pub crawl. I'll make it. We're flattered. Hope we can be worthy of our post. Hey, Susan. Susan, I love the mug, especially the coasters. It just looks like a plain one. Now you fill this up with hot liquid. It shows miles on it. Miles, don't knock this down, please. Hey, Kathleen. Hey, Ellen. Kathleen at band rehearsal. All right. In the back row. Hey, Dad. Hey, Ellen and Christine. Happy Pride all around. Yes, even Grandma Belle has got her Pride earrings on tonight. They sent me this picture from down in South Georgia. As soon as they sent the earrings, I knew it was that pair. I'm pretty sure that was my mother's pair. I've seen them since before they knew what a rainbow meant. We were in Iowa after all. the afternoon corporate tour, Miles had to be safe roomed. Hey, June.
I like that. Do it again.
Duke. Hey, Christy, my sister's fiance. Cassidy and Luca are here too. My sister Cassidy, her kid Luca. Hey, Katie. Hey, Diane. This is in fact a family affair here tonight. In case Christy might have missed it, here's Belle and her pride earrings, which I remember my mother had ones just like this for years. I don't think she knew what they might kind of take to some people. Ah, Joanne, sorry to hear that. Well, definitely blame Pullman. Angelica Miles, I understand, came originally from Oklahoma, but he's been here since he was 3 months old.
Why people tear the seams of anyone's dream.
This is Duke Ellington live at the Blue Note in Chicago. His arranger, Billy Strayhorn, was openly gay, and Duke would hear no criticism of it. He's the guy who really wrote Take the A Train, and quite a lot of Duke numbers, too. It's hard to tell. The real scholars can tell you where Duke ends and Billy begins. Generally, Duke would describe it as my waves were in his brain and his waves were in my brain. Hey, Laura. Hey, Nancy and Angelica and Aviva.
When someone new, what does it mean? That I'm untrue when we're apart.
Hey, Aviva and Ellen and Gary.
Words in my heart.
Yes, Mary Krug also gave Billy very little actual credit, which drove Billy nuts. But then he would do a whole tribute album to him after he died. And his mother called him Bill. Good record.
But please do nothing till you hear it from me. Baby,
Trey, the live stream on Facebook is on the Mysterious Chicago Facebook page. That's where most of the talking is. Go to Facebook, look up Mysterious Chicago, go to that page, and you come right up. Hey, Susan.
Thank you, Jimmy Grissom.
Hey, Chris.
And now from the Blue Note, we bring you two numbers that are released back-to-back on one of our recently released Columbia records. The VIP's Boogie, which of course is very important persons. Very important persons is naturally you, our lovely listeners.
Oh, our not very important persons is naturally you, our lovely listeners. We do love you madly, Duke. Hey, Georgie. Hey, Marley. Hey, Lynn. Adam's salad? What's my salad? I'm trying to think what my salad is. I'm so bad at making salads. I tried to. Karen, right on. There's such an interesting contrast in this picture. The non-Bathhouse crowd on one side and the Bathhouse people on the other. This would have been like the disco salad bar, yes. It was also attached to a famous murder sort of location. All right, we'll give it just another minute or so. Yeah, I can imagine, Christy, the CDC probably found bathhouses to be an absolute nightmare. But tangy lime dressing, Chinese sausage, lettuce. That sounds pretty good. Hey, Brooklyn. Mod alert? I don't know about that. I'm just drinking a smoked pineapple rum tonight myself. Hey, Jeff. We'll let Duke finish up this tune, and then we will get started up properly. He's got about another minute and 30 seconds to go here. Hey, Grandma Belle. We showed your picture earlier. Carol, that's what we'll be covering tonight. Yeah, smoked pineapple rum I got an email about from Benny. Like, there's a Benny's a few blocks from where I am right now. Well, that's dangerous. Hey, Linda. Hey, Chuck. Letting Duke Ellington finish off this tune. We always open with somebody live from a Chicago location. Usually it's Benny at the Congress. Hey, Uncle Dave. Sometimes it is Earl Father Hines live at the Grand Terrace on Chicago's Great South Side. Tonight it's Duke at the Blue Note. I also got some Duke at the Civic Opera Building. It's pretty good. Well, I wanted to open on Take the A Train, though. Written by Billy Strayhorn. It was appropriate for the evening. I guess they didn't get all of that song because it fades out right about at the end there. So, all right, everybody, I think that means it's time we get started. And time to get started when we are working the Time Travel Pub Crawl beat. You know what that means. It is time for the theme song.
Climb aboard, cause you don't know exactly where or when we'll go. Chicago 1893, or the Gilded Age in NYC. Blast off into outer space, drink till you're flat on your face. From the comfort of your home, so if you puke alone, one day we'll either find that place in France. And don't come crying to us if you pee your pants. Time travel pub crawl. Time travel pub crawl. Time travel pub crawl. Yeah!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome along to another brand new Time Travel Pub Crawl. Well, today consists of about 40% new material, but there is some great stuff here today. So I'm Adam Seltzer from Mysterious Chicago Tours, author of such books as Mysterious Chicago, Flickering Empire, How Chicago Invented the U.S. Film Industry, H.H. Holmes, The True History of the White City Devil, Murder Maps USA, the brand new Graceland Cemetery, Chicago Stories, Symbols, and Secrets, copy shipping out now for some lucky people. Also some young adult novels, including Just Kill Me, which got me on the Rainbow list about 5 years ago. And one called Sparks under the name S.J. Adams, which won me a Stonewall honor, just to establish a little bit of cred here in a field where I don't necessarily have any. So let me just explain to you a little bit how time travel pub crawls work. Back in the beginning of the pandemic, we started doing virtual tours around here, and I was brainstorming for new ideas, and thought, it would be fun, maybe a virtual pub crawl. Then I thought, well, that's kind of brilliant. In a virtual pub crawl, you don't have to worry about how drunk everybody is getting. You don't have to worry anybody's going to puke all over the bus. You don't have to round people up in the bars. Also, since it's virtual, it means we can go to anywhere in time and space. We can do New York bars and Chicago bars in the same night. So all we needed was some transportation. Back in 1915, a diver named Frenchy Deneau was found digging a trench in the riverbed to lay some cables down. Accidentally stumbled upon the wreck of a 40-foot-long homemade submarine. A month later, when they raised it up, they found a dead guy on board the thing. Put it on display on South State Street under the name The Fool Killer. For a dime, you could see the submarine and the dead guy. For a while, it became a carnival attraction, disappeared off of the record at the end of 1916, but we found it. It was in the couch tomb. So now we found out, not only did we find it, we find that it actually can not travel not just underwater. In fact, it's not very good underwater. What it's really for is going through time and space. So that's what we're going to do. Today, we are going to be doing a Pride Month themed pub crawl. We're going to go to some bars associated with the gay, lesbian, queer, etc. movement over the course of the last couple of centuries. Now, some of these we have to do some speculating on. I know people kind of get mad when historians are like, well, we don't know for sure. But the fact is, we don't really know for sure. A lot of times we're like trying to assign people terms that they wouldn't have been familiar with, terms that didn't exist at the time, impose relationship models on them that they wouldn't have been familiar with at all. But at the same time, like in a cemetery office, anytime we're looking someone up and they were 93 and died and never got married, we're all like, When other times there's people that I really have to imagine if they had the vocabulary, they would probably refer to themselves as trans today, like Henry Risley, the Earl of Southampton, you know what I mean? But again, we'll just never know for sure. But there are some places we're fairly sure of. To start out with, we are going to travel back in time and space, all the way to one of my favorite places to research. We're going to go to Gilded Age, New York City. Out here in the Gilded Age at 26 East Houston Street, which is near Broadway and Lafayette, stood Harry Hill's Variety Theater. Now, this was effectively just what it says, a variety theater. You'd walk inside and there was a bar, but also a stage where you would see people singing, people doing comedy acts, a wide variety of such comedy acts, and staging fights. Early versions of pro wrestling we're seeing here quite a bit. Here's one drawing of what it looked like on the inside, and one thing that is often noted is that in this place you would see interracial couples dancing. And nobody said a word. We can only really assume, but I do assume there were probably also same-sex couples dancing around here. Now, it was known for its crowd. It was a very wild crowd. It was a place where, like in that Moona song, people would lay down their weapons. Pickpockets and thieves came here. So did cops and judges. But everybody was kind of on a truce at this place. There were politicians, there were crooks. Well, sometimes those were the same people, of course. But everybody was just on neutral ground here. It was a really rough crowd, but everybody worked together in there. Everybody just forgot who they were outside of the bar. At Harry Hill's, you were just whoever you were at Harry Hill's. Here's a picture from the New York Public Library of it. And this kind of reminds me of although Mark Twain had this whole story about how he went in here one time and, thinking he'd see some geniuses, but instead some woman came up to him at the bar, said, "Why don't you come talk to me? Then why don't you buy me a drink? Why don't you take me dancing?" It happened to me just a few weeks ago in New York. I was wandering around looking for a drink. Some guy said, "You look like you need a drink." I said, "Yes, I do." And he said, "It's right in here." So I go into this place, and a woman much older than me in lingerie comes up and starts hanging on my shoulder. "You should buy me a drink. Why don't you take me dancing?" And I felt like a country rube in an 1880s morality book is what I felt like. Ended up with one beer $40 later. Didn't even get to see the elephant. Now here's another shot of Harry Hill's. I'm going to move myself out of the way here a bit. You see this guy drinking here. There's also, you see the similar thing. This guy down below me right now is drinking something out of a goblet with a straw. This is instantly identifiable as this guy is drinking a sherry cobbler. This was a very popular concoction about the mid-19th century. It was a drink that you would serve in a goblet and drink through a straw, which was a novelty at the time. A sherry cobbler was half a glass of dry sherry, 0.75 ounces of grenadine, some frozen fruit, chopped ice, and fruit juice. The chopped ice was very important. I kind of misspelled it right there. Very similar to like a daiquiri or a sangria, something you'd get at brunch. But having the straw to it was such a novelty that when Dickens talked about these in Martin Chuzzlewit, "What can you do with this? What do you call this?" said Martin Chuzzlewit. But Mr. Tapley made no answer, merely plunging a reed into the mixture, which caused a pleasant commotion among the pieces of ice, and signifying by an expressive gesture that it was to be pumped up through that agency by the enraptured drinker. So as you can see in this, fights were pretty regular, on the stage at least, at Harry Hill's Variety Theater. But also they would have things like ventriloquist acts. This was Mrs. Partington. Mrs. Partington was actually a ventriloquist doll who would tell stories and jokes that were very much like malapropisms and taking things too literally. And I find that absolutely charming. I've read some of her routines and thought, this was popular with this crowd full of thieves and pickpockets and weirdos. If you had gone in front of this crowd full of thieves, you could have read them an Amelia Bedelia book, and they'd think you were the funniest mofo on the planet. There's also some charming footage of a guy named Joseph Pujol Le Petoman, which is French for the fartomaniac. This was a guy who realized as a young man that he could suck air up the opposite hole that most people suck air into, and then release it, making pleasant noises. He became an excellent public farter, or fartist, and there is some film footage of him doing his thing. It's not sound film, so we'll just have to kind of fill it in ourselves. But it wouldn't have sounded like... as one might expect. He was actually going for imitating musical instruments. So he would have sounded kind of like... Either way, hugely popular and just the kind of act you might see at Harry Hill's Variety Theater. He could have also done some of the wrestling, I think. But alright, so this place eventually got targeted by social reformers and temperance types. They eventually converted Harry Hill. We'll get our revenge. I'd already announced I'm going to steal Christmas this year. We Jews are going to take back all the Christmas songs we wrote. We've already got all 10 of the Lords of Leapin' who are totally gay. All 9 ladies dancing at least identify as hetero-flexible. The 8 maids of milking are a little bit tougher, but frankly, some of them are kinky as F. All right, but let's move on a little bit into history. For the early 20th century, your best bet for a crowd like this would be to go someplace a little more private. So we are going to zip clear across the ocean and a couple of decades forward. Well, the 80s based on this. We're going to go to Paris, to 27 Rue des Fleurs. At 27 Rue des Fleurs on the left bank stood the apartment of Gertrude Stein, the poet, and her girlfriend Alice B. Toklas. Now here's Gertrude herself. Now, here in Chicago, we often talk about the fact that... I need to turn myself on here. We often talk about the fact that Bertha Palmer of the Palmer House invented the brownie. They needed a portable dessert to have for people working on the 1893 World's Fair, so it was developed in her kitchen. Yes, Virginia, I believe it. Her cook, I imagine, invented it. Alice B. Toklas, though, Gertrude Stein's girlfriend, invented a variation on it, now known as the magic brownie. The marijuana brownie. There's a whole cookbook where she mentions that finding all of the ingredients might present certain difficulties. But their apartment was a rendezvous place for every writer and artist who came through Paris from about 1903 to 1938. Picasso, Hemingway, James Joyce, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ezra Pound, and T.S. Eliot could go fighting in the Captain's Tower. In fact, you might remember we ran into Ernest Hemingway here one time, a couple of pub crawls back. Let's go see Mr. Ernest. Hey, Ernest.
Boy there. Pull up a chair. Match my wits, or at least my liver.
We've been to a lot of bars that claim you drank there. How many of those are accurate?
I'd say they were lying, but who can remember? Good chance I was at all of them.
Yeah, what happened to your hair? You weren't bald, were you?
Jungle trick. The Amazon. Spiders the size of coconuts. Locals say they get in your hair, I say shave it off. Don't let hair stand in your way of living.
It's very cool to actually meet you. You're just what I thought.
Arm wrestle? Worth it just to say you did.
Armstring's not really my favorite.
Drinks it is then.
Okay.
Daiquiris, my style. Rum, maraschino liqueur, grapefruit juice, and lime juice. I drink one, you drink one, we repeat until the bar runs out of rum.
I'd have one, but I've still got a tour to run around here. Okay. All right. So, I think actually, Ernest, we're going to go back to your old neighborhood here. We're going to go up to the Gold Coast River North area back in Chicago. We're going to roughly stay along the same timeline that we're in right now. We'll say that this all happened in 1921. We will zip our way to Chicago and the Magnificent Mile. So called because it is in fact magnificent. Thanks for Mr. Wrigley not putting his name on the building in giant letters like some hoodlum. Yesterday I ran a boat tour. I called it Ketchup Tower. I can call it something new every damn week. Anyway, right across the street from here, and I'll move this up a little, right across the street where the Under Armour store is, where you buy stuff to wick moisture off of your crotch. This used to be the site of the Wind Blew Inn, which was a flapper hangout or a genius hangout, and also a part of the River North neighborhood that was then called Tower Town, which was full of a lot of names of bars that we wouldn't really repeat nowadays, but cross-dresser bars, what we would now call gay bars. Of course, to get in here, it is the 1920s prohibition zone. We got to get past the bouncer.
Whoa. Where do you think you're going?
We're looking for the Wind Blew Inn.
Wind Blew Inn? I may have heard of it.
It says so on the sign right there.
All right, smart guy.
Hey, haven't I seen you somewhere?
You never saw me. You're not seeing me now, understand? What do you want?
Something strong to drink.
We don't serve booze. That's illegal. Only serve tea, 75 cents.
That's like $20 where I come from for tea.
That's right. Tea, 75 cents.
Oh, got it. Tea. Thanks.
Don't mention it. Really. Don't.
Okay, we will not. So, this is Lillian Colley's Wind Blew Inn. This is a picture taken after it got torched in 1922. Lillian was a teenage flapper who opened this place in an old gasoline station to try to recreate the vibe of Greenwich Village. She had been previously been hanging out at places like the Dill Pickle, where she would have hung out with a lot of the same people who hung out at Gertrude Stein's apartment in Paris around the same time. Decided to open up her own place over at Ohio and Michigan. It was known as a place where genius types hung out, presided over by Lillian and her aide, Virginia Harrison. Sorry, I had the video in a different place on the last tour, so... Hers is her aide, as she was usually described in the newspapers. It's generally been assumed that they might have been a little bit more than friends, a little closer than just co-workers. What we do know is the cops used to raid this place all the time because of rumors that they were hosting petting parties. Also serving booze, but mostly the petting parties. So, the cops would raid the place, they would arrest everybody, free everybody except for the proprietress for keeping a disorderly house. Virginia and Lillian had to go in front of a judge and say, "Your Honor, we solemnly swear there was no snuggle popping at the Wind Blew Inn." The judge sentenced them to read a book of fairy tales, which was supposed to cure their feminist ideals. Certainly didn't work on Lillian, but maybe it did on Virginia. That would explain a lot. Just shortly after that incident, the Wind Blew Inn was torched, and Virginia was the prime suspect. She had been seen walking around the place with a can of gasoline, threatening to get even. A couple of years later, she reemerged in the news with a baby and a husband, but that husband was a bank robber, and she was in fact now running a bank robbing crew. Based on the math, it would have been like the day she torched the Wind Blew Inn, she went off and got pregnant too. Married this guy who had helped us terrible Tommy O'Connor escape from prison back in 1921, was considered the mastermind of the whole group of bank robbers, was eventually caught herself when she went to view her husband's body. He was eventually shot, she went to view the body, tried to disguise herself, it didn't work. What became of her after that, I haven't yet determined. There's still a few mysteries around here, and among those mysteries, of course, is were she and Lillian actually girlfriends? Now, I asked her son that. Lillian disappeared off of the record after this. It took me a long time to figure out whatever became of her. Finally turned out that she had changed her name to Delise Child and become a mystery novelist. This is one of her books, Murder Comes Home. She also had a Broadway play that was on Broadway for a week, run by the Group Theater Project. It was called Weep for the Virgins. You can still get the script online today. But I tracked down her son. Her son mentioned to me that they used to go to every single Broadway show, front row from like the late 40s up through the late 60s. This is Lillian in 1976, and I asked her if she and Virginia might have been more than friends, and he thought and said, well, that would make a lot of sense. He then started naming some other women that she had been friends with that he suspected she might have been having an affair with over the course of her life. Also noted that he came out around the time this picture was taken in 1976. Didn't faze her one bit, even in the 1970s. So go Lillian. She died in 1981 at the age of almost 80. I tell this story a lot on my boat tours. I mentioned it's nice when I get to research someone who doesn't get serial killed at the end of the story every now and then. Doesn't happen too often, but every now and then. Now, in the 1930s, the mayor started cracking down on places around Tower Town, but he decided to let similar places stay about 30 blocks south down in Bronzeville. So we're just going to zip ahead about 10 years and down 30 or 40 blocks, down to Bronzeville, the black metropolis of Chicago in the 1930s, out on the area that they called the Stroll. But about 35th and State, one of two locations for this place. They said in those days you could walk down the street with a horn, and the air itself was so musical that the horn would pretty much play itself. In the midst of all of this was a place called the Cabin Inn, also known as the Cozy Cabin. You can see from the advertisement here, oddest nightclub in town. Phone Calumet 4972. No cover, no minimum, all new show, the oddest in town. Dorothy Scott and her Cabin Inn rhythms, Big Ivy and Jack Hardy. What they don't really specify here in this particular ad is that their main performers were what they then called female impersonators. Drag queens. So this was a black drag club in Chicago back in the 1930s. At the time, you could, in fact, get in trouble for this kind of thing, but there were ways around it. This was the new and beautiful edition of the Cabin Inn, featuring Valda Gray, who was a very popular drag queen at the time, and several other people. Breakfast dance every Thursday. Now, there's not a lot of data about places like this most of the time, but remarkably, we actually do have a picture of the inside of this. You can see the cabin motif, you can see the various impersonators here, you can see the guy playing the jazz music. Everybody looks like they're having such a good time in this shot. I love it. And there were a number of places that were at least gay-friendly, if not specifically gay. The Club de Lisa, the much more fancy club in Bronzeville, was known to be at least gay-friendly, but it wasn't as specifically gay as the much more middle-class or much more working-class Cozy Cabin, which never had a cover charge. One of their more popular performers was a guy named Dick Barrows, who performed in drag as Sepia Mae West, one of a number of Sepia Mae Wests who were operating around the country at the time. But this is the most remarkable thing of all. I was really thrilled to find this out. You know, very often we don't have much data about these people or footage. This is about the only picture of the inside I've seen. I haven't seen a good one of the outside. But Dick Barrows actually recorded a song that survives on a 78 RPM record. And not only is that a thing, but also it is a song called Down at the Cabin Inn about this place. So take it away, Sepia Mae West, alias Dick Barrows.
If you want to have a real good time, clean place to dance and dine, may producing shows that's grand, Tinsley with his red hot band, you'll hear hot nuts sang by Stella. The way she grooves is really mellow. Waiters keep a smile at me. Bartenders mixing drinks with ease. There's Joe and Lem, they sing and dance. Cute chorus girls put you in a trance. The boss and wife are very nice, and that's the place they don't have fights. There's Jimmy singing his jazz, yes. Impersonators do the rest. You buy whiskey and a blend. You don't need much dough to spend. There's the best of class, brand new friends, down at the Cabin Inn, oh yes, down at the Cabin Inn. Yes, I know. Down at the Cabin Inn.
Piano Miles.
Singing his yes, yes, impersonators do the rest. You buy whiskey and a blend. You don't need much dough to spend. There's the best of class, a brand new friend, down at the Cabin Inn, oh yes, down at the Cabin Inn.
I cannot tell you how thrilled I am that that actually exists. Dick Barrows, the Sepia Mae West, performing down at the Cabin Inn. Wonderful that that survives. I'd love it if we found like film footage or something like that. That's just not going to happen. Now, technically, it was not legal to be dressed in drag in those days, unless you could say that it was a costume. If you could say you were at a masquerade party, you would usually get away with it. Whereas in New York, in the 30 years after this, in the 1960s, legally, at any time, you had to be wearing at least 3 items of clothing that matched your assigned gender. So that would lead to a whole lot of rage. We're going to zip through time a little bit further here and go up to Christopher Street in the West Village. We did some mini tours out here just a few weeks ago, so I could get some footage of the famous Stonewall Inn. Absolute landmark. Now this became, this whole stretch of Christopher Street, about 3 blocks long, became a gay mecca in the 1960s. It was kind of considered the gay neighborhood in the 1960s. Picture of the Stonewall crowd right here. This looks a little bit later than the 1960s to me, but I can't really say for sure. But at the time, this was New York in the 1960s. It was not quite as fancy as it was now. Allen Ginsberg, the beatnik poet, lived in a little flat someplace around here. The Stonewall was by no account a nice place. It was a members-only place. That kept them out of trouble a little bit. But they didn't have things like running water. The drinks were just washed in a tub. Raids were pretty regular. There was one guy who still works there to this day, or last time the article was written, who said that all the time they would come in and arrest us. Usually we'd be tipped off ahead of time, so we'd be okay. If they called me in, I'd say my name was Freddie Fingernail. They'd put me in lockup for a while, then the judge would either send everybody home or he'd fine us all $20. It was just part of life, and it was really mostly the cops looking for a payoff more than anything else. But then one night in June of 1969, different cops than usual came in and nobody got tipped off, and this time the crowd decided to fight back. It wasn't just one riot, it was 5 separate nights of kind of facing down the police. There were some clashes. There were also things like throwing lit garbage cans, but this was New York in 1969. You see that all the time on 42nd Street. There were also things like conga lines and singing songs and really just kind of taunting and mocking the police. It's difficult to get actual details about it now. There's a lot of first-hand accounts, but as one person explains, you're never going to get a solid story on it because everybody was really stoned at the time. Probably true. Some people will absolutely roll their eyes if you mention that Judy Garland's funeral had been that day. Others will say, oh yes, of course that was a part of it. Some people just say that it kind of, the story of how we perceive it changes based on what we need it to be at the time. But one thing I can say is that it didn't make a whole lot of news at the time. This is from the Des Moines Tribune, right in the middle of it, 6:30, so this is the anniversary of it, 53 years ago today. Now here's the interesting thing. If you type in Stonewall Inn on newspapers.com, in 1969 you get about 25 results. All of them are in New York and New Jersey, except for this one from Des Moines. This is, now I guess this same article seems to have been syndicated on other sites. I found it in a couple of Texas newspapers, but this made very little news outside of New York and the New Jersey area at the time. But this is just a fairly simple article that was on page 13 of the Des Moines Tribune, which said that the area was heavily policed, no disturbances were reported, 13 arrests, injuries to 4 policemen. It's a very straightforward article, really. It wasn't until a week after this that the New York Daily News published this one, Queen Bees Are Stinging Mad, and that kind of gives you the tone of the whole rest of the article right there, as many puns as they could work in. But then there was also this article about that same week in Newsday, A Hot Weekend in the Village by Robert Meyer. And he just kind of describes, knowing that most of the Newsweek readers would have been completely unfamiliar with this, they are homosexuals, the kind who choose not to hide it. Long ago, they picked Christopher Street as their turf, a 3-block homosexual main street in Greenwich Village. They rarely accost strangers. They rarely break the law. They are allowed to live in peace. That is how it's been for years. Now, he just kind of describes that, this was their neighborhood. They picked it out. They don't bother anybody. Raids happen, but they're never really breaking any laws. It's a private club. There's nothing to offend the innocent passersby. Few non-members have ever been inside. But he kind of describes the uprising as almost like a carnival atmosphere, which is a pattern that you see quite a bit. Like down at the bottom here, the quote from one person involved said, "The blonde boy with makeup and pocketbook looked ecstatic. I've never had so much excitement in my life," he said. On about the 3rd day of the uprising, Allen Ginsberg strolled down, And he said that the people there normally had this look of sorrow in their faces, this sunken expression that all of a sudden was gone. And this was kind of a eureka moment for him. He saw what was happening and thought, gay pride. I never thought we could do something like that. We're one of the largest minority groups in this country. Why shouldn't we have something like this? So this is actually how it was first mentioned in the Chicago papers. About 4 months after the incident, the first time the term Stonewall Inn turned up in Chicago was in an article about Montreal, which mentioned that Allen Ginsberg, fresh from the police raid on the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village, was going to be in Montreal that week, in case any Chicagoans happened to be there. Or you could stick around and see Stan Kenton and the Plugged Nickel on Wells Street. That would have been a good show, too. But this became really the spark. It started making more news the next year when on the anniversary they started having pride marches. The first one was actually in Chicago a day before the one in New York City. And every year as the marches came up, the name Stonewall got to be more and more famous. It built up kind of gradually. Now we're going to move up just a little bit here. We're going to move a couple of years forward. And just up to the Upper West Side. We're down to the Lower West Side of Manhattan right now. We're going to move up a little ways. Like faster, well, getting up the West Side Highway is never this fast. But we'll give it our best shot here. The Upper West Side, not too far from Sesame Street, not too far from Lincoln Center. Good evening to all of you just joining us. Here it is, the Ansonia Hotel. Man, I love this place. It comes up a lot in the New York tour guide exam, honestly. It was, and here it is with a pride flag in front of it. Absolutely gorgeous building, built in the early 20th century by a guy named William Earl Dodge Stokes, who built up really quite a lot of the Upper West Side. This was perhaps his most ambitious building. Besides just being a hotel, it had a fountain up front with live seals. There was a farm up on the roof, so all the residents got all the eggs they could eat. Now, W.E.T. Stokes himself was kind of a sleaze guy. He had went through lover after lover. When he was in his 50s, he married a 26-year-old woman, which is better than all the stories we got about guys that age who were marrying 16-year-olds. So, eventually that 26-year-old wanted to divorce him or left him, and he got it into his head that she had once been one of the butterflies at the Everleigh Club in Chicago, which by then was long gone, but he went all over town trying to find clues. It led to a long and twisting divorce case, one of a few times that his scandalous love life made the news. The other time was when he started sending amorous letters to a couple of vaudeville also-rans named Lillian Graham and Ethel Conrad, who tried to blackmail him using the letters, and when blackmailing him didn't seem to be working, they decided to shoot him. And he was not killed or anything like that. They eventually got off the hook. I'm not entirely sure how. But they decided to take their act on stage under the name of the Shooting Showgirls. We'll cover all about them next week on the Shooting Showgirls presentation. But by the 1970s, the Upper West Side wasn't quite as fancy as it had been and not as quite as fancy as it is now. So the basement of the Ansonia became a bathhouse known as the Continental Baths. The Continental Baths were heavily advertised. They had major performers there. It was everything you'd think a bathhouse would be, only they also had a concert stage where they got people like the Andrews Sisters. And perhaps most famously, Bette Midler performed there all the time. I love this shot because you can just see the contrast here. You can see on the left all the people who had just come to see the singer, and on the right, the guys from the bathhouse are also hanging around there. She was generally accompanied on piano there by young Barry Manilow. They performed together all the time in those days. Since then, they've had a falling out that neither of them will speak of. We'll show just a bit of a clip of Bette here. For copyright reasons, I don't think I can show the whole thing. But here's just a clip of her.
And then they turn around and tell you everyone's got to love. I swear I see my own reflection somewhere far beyond this world.
This is actually her at the Baths, too. Barry.
I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, I shall be free.
copyright reasons, I don't dare show the whole thing. You go on YouTube, look up Bette Midler Continental Baths. You can get that whole performance. It's a remarkable document. And just that performance alone of I Shall Be Released, if you didn't understand what the big deal about Bette Midler was, if you mostly knew her from like sappy songs like I did in the 80s, go watch that. It'll clear the whole thing up for you very quickly. But to reproduce the effect a little bit here, we managed to persuade one of our old friends who I see singing in cabarets around New York, most recently just this month, ladies and gentlemen, singing a song by Matt Alber, an openly gay advocate songwriter. This is Marissa Mulder.
I want to get off, but they buckled me down like it's the end of the world. If you don't want to have this conversation, then you better get out, 'cause we're climbing to our death. At least that's what they want you to think. Just in case we jump the track, I have a confession to make. It's something like a corkscrew. I don't want to fall, I don't want to fly, I don't want to be dangled over the edge of a dying romance. Scream out quite so loudly when we screeched to a halt. I'm just never prepared for the end of the ride. Maybe we should get on something simpler, like a giant balloon. I've got 2 tickets left, and so do you. Instead of giving them away to some stranger, let's make them count. Come on, let's get back in line again and ride the big one. Don't you want to fall? Don't you want to fly? Don't you want to be dangled over the edge of this aching romance? 'Cause if it's gonna end, then I want to know that we squeezed out every moment. But if there's nothing left, can you tell me why that it is you're holding on to me like it's the end of the world?
Marissa Mulder, everybody. Absolutely fabulous. That is the title drop of her album, 2 Tickets Left. I first found her through her album, Tom in His Own Words. Both absolutely fantastic albums. Tom in His Own Words is a collection of Tom Waits covers that she absolutely blew me away with. Especially Broken Bicycles really knocked me out in particular. So, of course, I saw a comment that people don't like Bette Midler now that she's gotten political. She does forcefully advocate against Donald Trump. If you have a problem with that, then in the nicest possible way, go fuck yourself. So, all of this stuff that we're seeing here, people are actively trying to legislate out of existence right now. You will probably realize it's been an absolute shit week later. You also probably noticed that both of our bartenders were the same guy, that is Eli the ship's mechanic, who one day even wandered into a duplicator and made himself his own barbershop quartet, the Dead Ringers, with a song that I think is absolutely perfect for tonight. It comes from a musical called Golden Rainbow, which did not last very long. It was a Stephen Eady vehicle. I think one clue for as to why it might not have lasted too long is Golden Rainbow. Is it gold or is it a rainbow? You can't really be gold and a rainbow. Golden is by nature one color. Rainbows are by definition many colors. But ladies and gentlemen, here singing a song better known from its appearance on The Muppet Show than from its appearance on Broadway, We Got Us, closing us out with the Dead Ringers.
Life is a funny thing. Sometimes you laugh and sing. Sometimes you grumble and cuss. Cuss. But either way, what do we care? We got us. We have our ups and downs, our shares of smiles and frowns, but through it all we don't fuss. 'Cause we got a special thing going. We got us. Some people like to go through their life single. Aw, that wouldn't suit us at all. Why sing a melody as a soliloquy when it's more fun to be harmonizing? People, they say we are crazy the way we are, that we won't even discuss. 'Cause what we got, they can't smother. We trade our life for no other. They've only got one another, but we got us.
The Dead Ringers, ladies and gentlemen, and that brings us right up to the present. Once again, a song much better known for appearing on The Muppet Show than it is for appearing on Broadway. Took me a while to even find out what song that was when they sent it in. Standing ovation to the Dead Ringers, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and plug some of the upcoming events. That's tonight, the Time Travel Pub Crawl. A week from today, we will do the Shooting Showgirls from Bullets to Broadway. And on Saturday, July 9th, not this Saturday, but the next, not this one, but the next, we're doing 75 ways to die at Graceland Cemetery. That's 50% more ways to die than we advertised the last time we did this tour. It's going to be a great one for everybody, so please do come on out. Several people coming are already coming on their Patreon tickets. There's a plug for that. Should you need a Mysterious Chicago sweatshirt, hoodie, etc., try to be half as cool as Luca is right here, and go to cafepress.com/MysteriousChicago. And with that, everybody, we'll put the Duke Ellington back on, and we'll just hang out for a few minutes like we always do. Thanks, everybody.
All of me, why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm no good without you?
Now, the Dead Ringers there, what witchcraft was that?
I wanna lose them. Take my lips, I'll never use them. Baby, your goodbye left me with eyes that cry.
And there's, of course, all performers who are still ambulatory are being paid for this. Thanks for everybody who came out here. Happy Pride all around. I know the rainbow flags in stores are just decorations, but I really feel weird about shopping at one that didn't have one, you know? Gained and lost 2 people, don't give a damn. If they like Trump, they're gonna hate me sooner or later, so what do I care?
I ain't gonna use them. Say you
If you lost respect, Beth's had a few lines, a few gaffes on Twitter in her politics, as one does. Carol, are there still gay bars in Chicago? Plenty, yeah. All down North Halstead, all over Andersonville.
Thank you, Betty Roger.
Well, wait a minute. This fool killer doesn't have a fire exit. Enjoy your death trap, Mysterians. Sorry, I meant to work that joke in earlier. Hey, Lorena. Let me try to remember what Eli's PayPal was. Hang on, I'll find it. Hang on. Yeah, we'll just put this in text. Eli's probably still at work. He's on LA time. Oh, Find a Grave Friday will be a little bit late tomorrow. I got a job interview at 10. Yeah, the Melissa Amy there, that's Eli's wife. Well, if you were a Trump person, why would you come to Pride Night pub crawl to begin with? Laura, that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's more I interview them. Maybe they came there thinking that everybody was going to be hassling me or something, calling me a groomer or whatever that is now. But nothing I love better than pissing those guys off. Yesterday on the boat tour, I called it the Ketchup Building on one run and then the Ketchup Tower on the other. It'll be out of, hopefully that reference will be out of date. We'll have better ones by then, by the time we do the boat tour for Mystericon. But now and then, the guy who runs that company has said, you gotta call it by its name. You can't say anything snarky. Like, the hell? One day, God willing, this will all be over. I don't want to look back and feel like I chickened out every time I pass that building. Or any time when I pass that building. Kathy, I hope so too. Thank you very much. All right, Kathy. Well, you know, this bear can poke back pretty well. Technically, I would never pass as a bear, but still. Yeah, Find a Grave Friday. Look for it tomorrow at 10:30. I'll post it. I'll try to remember to post something about it in the morning. Ah, this is great. Just realized I had this on shuffle mode. That'll be Ray Nance, Bronzeville's own, on the violin there. Jenna, no, I don't have any. It's not a corporate boat tour, it's a cheapo boat tour. I just pick up a shift here and there. If it was a corporate one, I'd charge them more. Thank you, Ellen. Thanks, Eleanor. Thanks to everybody who's hitting these donate buttons. Really does help. I paid off the IRS this week. So that's at least behind me. You know what else gets behind you is hemorrhoids. Oh, hey, Gina. I mentioned Club de Lisa tonight. It's frequently mentioned as a gay-friendly place. Though it wasn't as specifically catering to that crowd as the Cozy Cabin was. As Katie, a bear is a larger and hairier gay man than me. Have I heard anything about the gay bars in Calumet City? Richard, I have not. Out of my jurisdiction.
Hurry, hurry, hurry. Now it's coming. Ooh, ooh. Can't you hear? The rails are humming. Get with it. If you should take the A train, you'll find it the quickest way to get to Harlem.
Hey, you guys know Gina DeLisa out there in the chat? Her grandparents, I believe it was the grandparents who owned Club DeLisa. There's pictures of Kristen's grandparents hanging out there.
I ain't mad at you, pretty baby. Don't be mad at me. Oh, pop, shabam, googly mob, shabby, dooby, doo, ow. Sweet, sweetie, dooby, dooby, do you, dot, shabby, do you do? Me and you. I covered the waterfront. I covered the waterfront. Don't know why. There's no sun up in the sky. Got no money, honey. Eh, blah blah did. Oh, blah blah dot. Eh, blah blah dot. Eh, blah blah dot.
Hey, Susan. This is Betty Roche singing along with Duke Ellington, the Blue Note in Chicago. Oh yeah, no, we mentioned my parents sold their house this week. The house where I lived in high school has been sold off. Oh, Phoenix, that's awesome. That's one group I really wish I could have seen. But plenty of people from that era, you know. Duke, Woody Guthrie.
Do nothing till you hear from me. Pay no attention to what's said. Why people tend
really most of the jazz greats I didn't have a chance to see. Sonny Rollins I got to see. McCoy Tyner from the Coltrane Quartet I got to see. Mose Allison of the Jazz Showcase. I was too late for the big bands, too late for Coltrane. I guess I could have seen Miles Davis when I was like 12. But I probably wouldn't have. Let's see where Miles is now. Miles is so tired out from dancing or what? Can we go back?
When someone new, what does it mean? that I'm untrue when we're apart. The words in my heart.
Gina, that is odd information to know.
Feel about you, some kiss may cloud my memory, and other arms may hold a thrill. But please do nothing till you hear it from me. Baby, you never will.
There are a couple of Duke at the Blue Note recordings. There's one that we released on CD a few years ago from 57. This is from 52.
Thank you, Jimmy Grissom. And now from the Blue Note, we bring you two numbers that are released back to back on one of our...
All right, we'll do one more Duke song here.
The VIP's Boogie, which of course is very important persons.
The VIP's
Important
Boogie.
persons is naturally you, our lovely listeners.
I feel like I might have missed a comment up over here. Yeah, that's bizarre. You've been there for 26 years in that house. I guess I was only there for a few, so... It doesn't seem like as much to me. Well, Gina, I'm hoping it wasn't during Poor Judd is Dead. Carol, yes, I did manage to get tickets to see Maisie Peters. They sold out like that. See, I knew it's going to be a short window of opportunity to see her in places like the Vic. It sold out in like 10 seconds. Apparently, she could have gone to a larger venue.
Jimmy Hamilton.
But, you know, the tickets are only like $30 too. What did I last buy a $30 ticket for something? But there's a whole generation of young songwriters who grew up on Taylor and Lord who are writing terrific songs themselves now. But Maisie Peters is a standout. The songcraft in her stuff is very good. I just kept refreshing, then one of them popped up. But all right, everybody, this is Duke Ellington, live at the Blue Note in Chicago. That was down on Clark Street, near Madison, right next to the Clark Theater.
I like that. Do it again. Hey, drop it a minor third. A minor third.
Duke totally putting this guy on the spot. All right, everybody. All right, so that is the Time Travel Pub Crawl. We're going to be taking off to tonight. Tomorrow, once again, the Find a Grave Friday is going to be a little bit later than usual. We're going to be at about 10:30 tomorrow. Haven't figured out where we're going or who we're finding yet, so I'll work on that in the morning. Next in-person tour, for which you can buy tickets, 75 Ways to Die at Graceland Cemetery. 50% more ways to die for your money. So, all right, everybody, thank you very much. I needed this too. Thank you all. It's like the Dead Ringers say, we got us. They only got one another. We got us. So stay strong, stay proud. But of course, if at all humanly possible, stay spooky, everybody, and have a great night.